I'm Warren Bird, and Reggie McNeal, you did an amazing webinar on well, it's because of your special guest that was on there, on raising your collaborative intelligence. But you made the point that collaboration is especially critical in one area. What was that area?
If we're going to have impact in our community beyond our congregation, if we're going to work with other congregations or other sectors of our culture, our society, to move the needle on a big societal issue, to have city impact, then you have to adopt a collaborative approach to that. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. And we see it far too often. People who mean well, have wonderful plans for their city, but they sit together in the church fellowship hall or conference room and dream up how they're going to bless the city, and then ride out from Camelot to the lower 40 to tell everybody how here we are to save the day, and mean well. I don't want to disparage any of that, but wow, you cannot bring about true societal transformation that way. And if you need to be the hero, or if you need to be, we invented it and God used us to do this all by ourselves, and this city would be in trouble if it weren't for us. Oh man, you have to adopt a posture of humility, a posture of listening, a posture of partnership, a posture that God's already at work in your city long before you showed up, and probably after you're gone, unless Jesus comes back. And that forces you, I think, into a collaborative stance.
Well, all right. How would you invite that kind of collaboration? You're a church group that sat in the fellowship hall and just prayed up a storm for your city. You're burdened for it. You want to do something. You're going to go knock on the door of some agency or nonprofit or other group in the city. How do you frame the conversation?
Well, with all of my clients that have that say this is what we want to do, help us do it, I generally have them interview either in group settings or one-on-one or even email sometimes if they can't get to folks. But I'll have them interview city leaders across a wide domain, a wide cross-section of domains. Government folks, the mayor, city council person, police chief. It's amazing how much you can learn about a community. Superintendents of education, the healthcare, the hospital administrators.
So you're saying the knock on the door is to interview.
And I keep it simple. Typically, I typically would have two questions, and the first one is, what one or two issues, if solved, would make the most difference in our community? And you don't ask people what one issue, because then they just freeze up. What one or two? And then I have them ask a second question, Mr. Mayor or Mr. Police Chief or whoever. If you personally could tackle one issue, what's your biggest
and that's to get
interest?
What their passion
That's
is?
exactly right. And what happens is we discover, because we're trying to serve these folks too, not just the issues. But if you're the mayor, and I say, well, Warren, that's fascinating that you should mention that, because we've had 4 people say that very same thing to us over the next little, and let me just put you in touch with I bet you folks have something to learn from each other. You've just communicated to them right off the bat, we're not just trying to use you to get something done. This thing about serving our city is we're really serious about it, including serving you as an elected official or in your role. And it's amazing. I've done that in group settings. I remember in Pensacola we had 2 days of these. We had 40-something community leaders in groups of 8 to 10, and then ask them that question before they get there. And of course you have to have a convener in each of these. That's another issue. But just getting them with skin in the game and a chance to talk about this stuff, it's really, really critical, very important. And so we always start there, and then we cycle back to those folks, because if you ask people their opinion, you need to come back and say, here's what we discovered. No one else thought your idea was, you were crazy. You were the only one that thought that.
Or it's a great idea, and we don't have any resources to help you on it.
Or, you know what, you nailed it, because 70% of the folks said literacy is the biggest issue in our community. Now, once you get that information, the collaborative process itself of stitching together a coalition of people, it requires sometimes it takes 18 to 24 months just to decide what the common agenda is going to be, even if there's a perceived consensus of what it, like literacy. Something, well, yeah, but what part of literacy are you going to deal with? Early childhood education, or how about the hunger piece, because that impacts that, or how about after school, or is it summer retention? I mean, there are all kinds of issues, so you have to figure out what is it, and that can take a while to discover. And but boy, if you build the right partners base, in multiple rounds of listening, multiple rounds of pulling people in, always with a question: who else needs to be at this table? As you are building this kind of core coalition of folks to pull something off, it's critical. And so the collaborative process gets it going, but it also makes sure that it actually gains traction by finding out who the real players are and who you can count on. Now, what that looks like, Warren, in different communities can be very different. I mean, I'm working with one group of folks where they had literacy, for instance. Let's just use that as something they wanted to do. Tried for 12 months to figure out how to frame an initiative. Finally decided, made the right decision. You know what? We've got all these people already, moms and pops and foundations and people that have been at this forever. Why are we reinventing the wheel? Why do we want to come on then like competitors that we've just come up with a new idea here and we're going to solve the literacy issue in the schools? So they created a literacy coalition. Very smart. Now we're the champion for all of these folks. And then you can also, we can figure out where the gaps are and raise funds for everybody, all these efforts. Brilliant kind of insight but it took 12 months to come to that insight.
And Reggie, how do churches deal with groups that philosophically they're just not on the same page with?
Question.
But yet on that one issue they could be. Is that harming the mission of the church to be identified?
If we don't learn to swim and dance with these other folks, I don't know how we ever are salt and light. If we force people to be just like us and adopt our values in order to even work with them on something of mutual interest, I don't see how that moves forward the kingdom agenda at all, because there are people all over our cities who are working, but unbeknownst to them, on kingdom agenda, partnering with God, even the co-conspirators for His kingdom purposes, even though they're unaware of it. And so I don't think forcing value, on one-to-one correspondence on values. The key thing for collaboration is the mission. What is the mission? Because that's, that, and it can be a particular issue mission, but if there's agreement on that, then you can, you work shoulder to shoulder with folks to get stuff done. And that is a magnificent place to start conversations about your own motivations. And why do we care about these folks? And why is this issue important to us? It's important to us because it's important to God. And and Jesus did this kind of work when He was here, and we're supposed to be doing that.
There's your bridge right into the gospel.
Yeah.
Great. Raising your collaborative intelligence. There's a lot to it. Thank you, Reggie McNeal.
Let's do it.